disorder health and lifestyle study, and I'll get Amanda to go through what it's all about. We thought it might be easier to do the 3 presentations. I'll give a bit of a wrap up. It'll all take about half an hour, so it's very general. And then we can get to the specifics about what you guys want to talk about, which is really why we're here. So I'll hand over to Amanda, and she can go through her study, and we'll go from there.
I'm Amanda, and I'm the study coordinator of the Bipolar Disorder Health and Lifestyle Study. Been working in research for the past decade in mental health and osteoporosis research. And today I'm going to talk about this study. So the investigators of the study are all local Barnum Health and Deakin researchers and clinicians, so you might be familiar with some of the names. Professors Burke and Pascoe, Dr. Williams, Associate Professor Felice Jacker, and Dr. Moyle. So our aim is to investigate health and lifestyle factors associated with bipolar disorder, and findings from this project may be used to inform public policy and health service delivery, leading to improved treatment and health outcomes for people with bipolar disorder. So we are investigating a host of health and lifestyle factors, but today I'm just going to talk to you about one, which is bone health. So when we talk about bone health, I'm talking about bone mineral density. So low bone mineral density is called osteopenia, and very low bone mineral density is osteoporosis, and fractures are also associated with osteoporosis. So bipolar disorder has been linked with low bone mineral density, BMD, as well as an increased risk of fracture. Some of the medication taken in bipolar disorder has been associated with increased risk of fracture and lower BMD, yet others are associated with higher BMD. Now, the literature in this field is very scarce, so there's only 3 studies published at the moment, this is worldwide, looking at or investigating bipolar disorder and bone health. These are small studies, or they look at only an older group of participants, and there's lots of missing information. So, for example, some of the information that I've got on the screen today about medication is actually drawn from research into epilepsy or schizophrenia. And also we take some information from depression. So depression is associated with lower BMD, increased fracture risk, and reduced bone density as well. And some of the antidepressants are also associated with increased risk of fracture and lower BMD. Now that doesn't mean people need to change medications, because this is all preliminary research. And this is the reason why we're looking into it. So why would we think that bipolar disorder and bone health are linked? That's because increases in inflammatory markers implicated in bipolar are also implicated in osteoporosis and bone health. As I said, medication taken for bipolar disorder can affect bone, albeit positively or negatively, and lifestyle factors that are implicated in osteoporosis can be affected in bipolar disorder. So we're aiming to investigate this link, taking all of these things into account. So our research plan, we're aiming for 200 plus participants with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder residing in the Geelong and surrounding regions. We want to look at the full adult age range, and this is an observational study, so that means there's no intervention. And it's a case-control study design. So cases are to be recruited from the region, and control participants we've already recruited, and they are participating in the Geelong osteoporosis study. Now this study's been going for about 15 years, and it has men and women. And these people weren't recruited on the basis of having osteoporosis, they're just randomly selected from the population. And it was originally set up to investigate osteoporosis, but they've expanded their aims, and we also investigate a range of mental health conditions as well. So what is involved? It's only one appointment for this study. We do bone density scans, of which we send our participants their results. We do a keel ultrasound, which is a quality measure of bone strength. Clinical measures like height and weight, waist and hip, and lots of questionnaires on health, lifestyle, diet, sleep, activity levels, quality of life, and mental wellbeing. And we also take a blood sample. Do you want to be involved? So to be eligible to participating in the study, it's pretty easy. We just need people with a diagnosis of bipolar, age 20 plus years of age, be a resident of the Barwon Statistical Division, so that's Geelong and surrounding regions that I mentioned before. That's to coincide with the Geelong Osteoporosis Study controls. So the project I'm working on is called Mood Swings. It's an online self-help program for bipolar disorder. I'll start off by apologising. We did end up finishing recruitment quicker than we thought, so we actually closed recruitment last week. So I did hope to be able to come here and offer the program to you guys, but we do have a waiting list available, which I'll provide a link to, so if anyone's interested in finding out when it becomes available again, then I'll have that in there. So this program, it's a collaborative project between Deakin, the University of Melbourne and Stanford University in California. So this is our website. So it's based on a face-to-face group therapy program called MAPS, which some of you may be aware of. It was originally developed into an online version in 2007. And back then it was one of the first online programs for bipolar disorder. At the time it did go through a trial, and that trial showed a significant improvement in symptoms of mania across the 12-month follow-up period. So based on those positive results, we're now doing another study. So the program has been open since about February last year, so around 12 months. And so far we've had just under 13,500 visits worldwide, so really great news. Lots of interest. As you can see, we've covered a lot of the world. And if we look specifically at Australia, 3,500 of those from Australia alone, and that covers the whole country. So that tells us that obviously people are interested in this kind of project, which is great. And that has led to a really interesting bunch of people who are now evaluating the site for us. So most of the people we've recruited are from Australia and the United States, which we kind of expected. But we also have this really broad range of people from all over the world as well. So as I mentioned, recruitment did finish last week. We have 302 people. Their average age is around 41. They're mostly Caucasian females with a relatively long illness history. And this is the program, so this is what it looks like when you've logged in. Most of the content is on this right-hand side, blue panel there. So the program consists of modules, tools, and forums. So the modules cover a broad range of topics. We've got what is bipolar disorder, stress and triggers, medication, depression, and elevated mood. They're made available to the participants every 2 weeks. And then after that, we've also got 4 follow-up modules, which we call boosters. So they're released every 3 months. They just review the content from the previous modules. So this is an example of one of our modules. So as you can see, it's mostly text. There's some images and diagrams in there as well. And then we've also got the tools. So they also cover a broad range. There's the About Me profile, relapse reduction plans, illness profiles, charting tools like mood and medication monitoring, thinking strategies, problem solving, and goal setting. So some of these are presented kind of like an online worksheet. Other ones are a bit more interactive where you put your information in and it'll make a nice graph. This is an example of one of those. This is our mood monitor. So you can put in mood, irritability, anxiety, and sleep hours, and then it will graph it out across whatever time period you like. And then we have the discussion forums. So this is basically taking the face-to-face support group and putting it online. So this is anonymous discussion with peers. It's moderated. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so far we actually have over 2,500 posts, which is really good. So this has been really well received by our participants so far. This is what the forum looks like. So it's just a list of topics. When you click on them, all the replies are shown. I just included an example of a post that we received. So this one's actually some really nice feedback that we received from one of our participants. And they say, I found it helpful to share my concerns here and read what others have to say about it. It has helped me feel less alone dealing with bipolar. When I'm depressed, I come here daily to at least read and often respond to what others write, and it's helped me get through the episode. The forums give me a place where I can safely be myself. Out in the real world, I still hide that I have bipolar, although many friends know I struggle with depression. I've tried support groups at my clinic, but I didn't feel I had much in common with the people. Here I found many kindred souls. So ultimately, what would we like to see? We won't have our results from this study for probably another 12 months, but ideally we'd really love to see
reduce symptom severity, fewer mood episodes, greater quality of life, improved social support, less perceived stigma, and obviously positive program feedback. We'd really like to know that what we've got is beneficial. And future directions, we'd really love to open the program up to the public so that anyone can access it at any time. We'd also like to make it entirely online with an automated sign-up. At the moment we do talk to our participants on the phone beforehand, so it would be really nice to be able to remove that step and make it easier to sign up. And also individual tailoring, so if people could choose what content they'd like to see and take out anything that they think is not relevant to them, that would be great. So as I mentioned, we do have a waiting list at the moment if anyone would like to be informed when the site does become available again. So our website is www.moodswings.net.au. The waiting list is on there. And for anyone that would like to access anything now, there are other online programs available. So there's Geelong Bipolar that's based in the UK. It has similar content to Mood Swings, but the program structure is different. But that one is entirely free and available now. And there's also Mood Gym for depression and Anxiety Online for anxiety disorder. I do have some business cards with our web address here if anyone would like them.
The long study that we're bringing along, and we have been here with this study before, so if it sounds familiar, it's the same study. It's called the Mitochondrial Agents for Bipolar Depression because we like to have big long titles for things, but don't worry, I can simplify it. This is a clinical trial, so your traditional pharmacological clinical trial in its essence. The difference is firstly, all of the studies that we run at Impact are in addition to treatment as usual, which means that if you come onto one of the clinical trials, whatever you're currently doing remains the same. And that's true for all of our studies, regardless of what illness it might be looking at. The other, I think, really nice thing about this study is, although it's called Mitochondrial Agents, which sounds like a mouthful, effectively it's a combination of vitamins and minerals. So they're relatively benign when you compare them to some of the other medications that are currently available. So what it means is that if you take part in this study in particular, the chances of having additional side effects on top of what you're already experiencing are quite slim. There are always going to be side effects for people, but generally these are fairly well managed and fairly well tolerated. So things like a bit of indigestion and those sorts of things are quite common. Some people find that they don't even experience that at all, so it just depends on who you are. This study is being run at the moment in 3 centres, obviously one here in Geelong, and Yuval's come along. If you haven't seen Yuval already, he's one of our trial clinicians who actually sees participants for the study. He or one of our others will see you for 3 months. We're missing a month. I just realised, you only ever see them when they're this big. We actually are missing a month, so it's 4 months of treatment with a 1-month follow-up. So the design's effectively the same, it's just that the treatment phase is 4 months and not 3. And what that means is that you're given either the placebo, the combination, or acetylcysteine alone. Again, you like big words. The placebo is obviously what it is. It's a rice starch that comes in the capsules that look exactly the same as all the others, but it doesn't do anything. The combination treatment is what we're talking about here in terms of mitochondrial agents. Now, people with bipolar disorder would have the, face value experience of having a problem with their energy production. It seems to stand to reason. When you're feeling elevated and things are up that end, generally you're full of energy and everything's wonderful and you're hyped up and you can do lots of things. Now on the other end, you go through a depressive phase or your energy is quite low. You're depressed, you can't get out of bed, you have trouble moving, all of these things. So it stands to reason that there's something going on with energy here. And the mitochondria are the things that make your energy in your cells. So we're looking at basically targeting the cellular energy to produce better energy outcomes in general and sort of balance that out. That's the theory. This is why we do the studies, to find out whether the theory works in practice. So the agents, you can see here I've listed a few of what's in there. There's actually 14 agents and I do have the full list. But like I said, effectively they're vitamins and minerals. The other other thing that we have included is acetylcysteine, which is a little amino acid and probably something you would have heard of before because we've been talking about this for quite some time. It's called N-acetylcysteine, or shortened to NAC, and it's an amino acid that's responsible for a lot to do with antioxidant production, but it also has functions that we know are going to try and help balance out that energy shift. So in theory, we're hoping that the NAC alone will work, and then the combination will work better. We've already tried NAC for depression in both unipolar and bipolar depression, and it's been found to be effective. So some of you will have already probably taken part in those studies. This study again is looking at bipolar depression because we know that the current treatments are okay at dealing with elevated mood on the whole. We want to look at the places where the biggest shortfalls are, and at the moment that seems to be in treatment for bipolar depression. So that's sort of where we're focusing. Just to sort of bridge the gap between conventional treatment, whether that be medication or psychotherapy or anything that you're doing, and where you'd really like to be in terms of outcome and recovery. Because we know there's that shortfall. We want to try and fill that. So that's the study. You are still currently recruiting, and we'll be happy to take details. We've got flyers on that study and another study on depression alone. I haven't brought the slides along for the other study because we didn't really want to make this too research heavy. We wanted to give you guys an opportunity to discuss things and ask us some questions. The other thing you'll notice that we purposely designed the slides to reflect the amount of activity and input involved in some of the studies that we're doing. So for instance, Amanda's study is observational only. So you come in, it's money to you, give a blood sample if you like, and have some additional scanning, and that's really your involvement. Emma's program is really quite interesting because it's while it's a clinical trial at the moment, looking at the effectiveness of the online program, eventually it'll be more about self-help and those sorts of things. So again, the intervention is a little different. Whereas the last study, being a traditional clinical trial, requires you to come in 7 times over the course of the trial. It's a lot more involved, but it's also much more active in terms of we actually give you a medication to try yourself. So it's just that level of interaction and what you want out of the treatments that you're seeking. So basically this is what many of you probably would have known originally as the Geelong Psychiatric Research Unit, headed by Michael Burke. It's still headed by Michael Burke. We're now part of Deakin, and we have been for a few years now. But the centre has actually expanded quite significantly. We've joined forces with Julie Pascoe's group, and now we're one big unit of impact. So the amount of research we're doing is quite a lot bigger, but it also ranges really well from looking at the epidemiology or what's happening in the population, trying to find out patterns of data that we can then take through to a clinical trial. And really that's working quite nicely within the unit now, and it's something that's really special about our unit. And it's also something that Geelong needs to be proud of. You guys own us. You know, this is a Geelong resource. And you should be accessing it in any way that you see fit because, as I said before, we're predominantly funded by National Health and Medical Research Council grants, which means we're predominantly working out of government funding, and that's all paid for by taxpayers. So just remember that the next time you're thinking about where your research dollars want to go, because they are your research dollars. And we are very, very, very grateful for them, and we treat them with a lot of respect.